Hey there, this is Chris, the Drone Geek, dropping in to let you know that today's episode of Sky High History is our Halloween Horror Edition. So this may be a good episode for younger viewers and the faint of heart to sit out. Also, today's episode will have moments of bright flashing lights and loud sounds, so for anybody that has a neurological disorder or a sensory disorder, this might be a good episode to just skip. Sorry, I just wanted to look out for you and make sure you knew going into the episode what you were getting yourselves into. But that's all I have to say, so if you've decided you still want to watch the episode, good luck, and I hope you enjoy. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Sky High History. Today's edition of Sky High History is spooky. That's right, we're getting into the Halloween spirit with 3 of Pennsylvania's most historic and most haunted locations. But be warned, these stories are not for the faint of heart. So, turn out the lights, gather round, and whatever you do, don't look up. She doesn't like it when you look up. Our first terrifying tale takes us to McKean County, Pennsylvania, to the Old Jail Museum in Smethport. The museum is a former jail in the county that has an inmate that never left. In 1892, Lucetta Crossmeyer, a widow living on her family's farm, went to the barn to milk the cows. The snowy November morning was the same as any other morning for Lucetta, or so she assumed it would be. Hours passed and the day grew older. Lucetta's father-in-law grew more concerned as time went by and Lucetta had not returned. This led him to send the 7-year-old neighbor boy to go investigate what was causing Lucetta's delay. Upon entering the barn, the young boy was confronted with a horrifying scene. Lucetta, hanging by her neck from the rafters of the barn. Her face was smeared with blood, and a pool of her blood had collected 4 feet from her corpse. Terrified, the boy sprinted back to the farmhouse while crying and screaming. Initially, the death was ruled a suicide, but after further investigation, it was discovered that Lucetta had been bludgeoned to death. The back of her head had hit the ground hard before being beaten to the point that her face was badly bruised and her nose crushed flat. She also had finger marks around her neck and throat, indicating that the death was caused by another person and was quite deliberate. The sheriff and district attorney concluded that there was only one person that could be responsible for the murder: Lucetta's son, Ralph Crossmeyer. At 24 years old, Ralph was living in Mount Jewett and had fallen into bad terms with his mother regarding his father's death. He was last seen boarding a train in Mount Jewett, headed for Smethport just 2 days before his mother's murder. After being arrested and throughout the entire trial process, Ralph was oddly indifferent and never outwardly denied killing his mother. It was both chilling and perhaps the most damning evidence against Ralph, as most would assume a son would be overcome with grief after the death of a parent, no less their murder. Ralph was convicted and sentenced to death by hanging. Consistent with his attitude during the arrest and trial process, Ralph Crossmeyer continued to show a chilling indifference to murdering his mother and his impending doom. Even as the device that would be used to hang him to death was being built in the corridor outside of his cell, Ralph did not waver from his soulless outlook. The only show of emotion from Ralph was just moments before he was hanged, as he swore to always haunt the jail in which he spent his final days. In that same moment, Ralph also proclaimed his innocence for the first time. At 10:22 a.m., Ralph Crossmeyer was pronounced dead after being hanged by the neck. However, while Ralph's story in his mortal coil ends there, his spirit reportedly continues to roam the building that was once the jail that housed him. The next prisoner to be housed in Ralph Crossmeyer's cell was an Italian man, and he was terribly frightened during his time in the cell. The man reported seeing the ghost of Ralph appear, sit in the cell for a few moments, and then disappear. The Italian man was not the only person to see the apparition, as many other inmates also saw what was reportedly the spirit of Ralph Crossmeyer. As word spread and sightings increased, so did panic and hysteria within the jail. Even after the jail was closed and converted into the old jail museum and headquarters of the McKean County Historical Society, people report seeing Ralph's ghost roaming the halls of the building. 2 official reports include the lights turning on and off frequently by themselves and the indoor waterfall in the building turning on all by itself at 2:30 in the morning, a time that the staff have guaranteed no living person would be present in the building. We'll never know if Ralph Crossmeyer was guilty of his mother's murder, but one thing is for certain. His vengeful spirit continues to make good on the promise made before his execution. Our next spooky story from history is a tale of obsession mistaken for love. The Acomic Inn in Wrightsville has gone through many identity changes throughout the years. However, its troubled history comes from its time as Coyle's Ferry sometime between 1772 and 1874. Johnny Coyle was the son of the owner of the ferry. Johnny fell in love with Emily Myers, a worker at the ferry. However, Emily did not share the same feelings for Johnny, which would become a problem that would push Johnny to a desperate act of passion. After dozens of advances met by dozens of spurnings, Johnny gave it one more try while Emily was milking the cows. She once again spurned him, telling him that she would never have those feelings for him and was not interested in his advances. This enraged Johnny so much that he snapped and shot Emily Myers to death. Johnny pled not guilty by reason of a weak mind. His plea was met with a wrathful jury who sentenced Johnny Coyle to be hung to death by his neighbors. Johnny appealed for a retrial where he was met with the same sentencing, but this time he was to be hanged in Gettysburg instead of Wrightsville. Johnny's body was returned to Wrightsville by his mother. Johnny Coyle's grave marker is currently located 50 feet from the entrance of the Acomic Inn. Reports of Johnny's spirit haunting the Acomic Inn have been recorded for over 2 centuries. Johnny is said to walk the halls of the Acomic Inn, breaking dishes, slamming doors and furniture, and even hiding objects around the inn. Johnny isn't the only paranormal entity inhabiting the Acomic Inn. Emily Myers' spirit is particularly active on the premises at night. Workers who have been in the Acomic Inn later at night have reported hearing soft music playing and the whispers of a female voice ranging from several rooms away to as close as right in their ear. One other reported sighting includes the apparition of a young couple together in an upstairs storage room of the inn. That leads one to wonder, did Emily finally accept the advances of Johnny in the afterlife? We may never know, but one thing we do know is, on any given day, you are bound to experience the mischief and mystery caused by the spirits of Emily Myers and Johnny Coyle at the Acomic Inn. Our third spine-chilling chapter takes us to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, to the historic Fulton Theater. The Fulton is home to a reportedly staggering number of ghosts and paranormal entities due to the history of the theater and the grounds on which it was built. We'll start with the location's darkest moment in history, the Paxton Boys Indian Massacre of 1763. The Paxton Boys were a group of Scottish Ulster Protestants who formed a retaliatory group against the Native American population settled along the Susquehanna River, a group of natives who were non-aggressive against white colonials. On December 14, 1763, the Paxton Boys attacked the Native Americans living in Conestoga Town, murdering 6 of the natives and burning down their homes. The 6 victims belonged to the Susquehannock tribe and were brutally murdered through scalping and mutilation. The colonial government saw the attacks as murder and unjustified. As a result, they offered a reward for the capture of the Paxton Boys and took the 14 remaining Native Americans from Conestoga Town into protective custody in Lancaster, where the now Fulton Theater was located. That decision would prove fatal to the surviving members of the Native American Conestoga Town community. On December 27, 1763, the Paxton Boys broke into the building and scalped and dismembered 6 adults and 8 children. The violent and unjust nature of the murders has resulted in reported paranormal activity in and around the Fulton Theater. Many guests and workers at the Fulton have allegedly seen apparitions of Native American adults and children, as well as oddities such as doors opening and closing on their own, voices, and whispering in the backstage areas. Another instance of a paranormal entity haunting the Fulton Theater is of one Marie Cahill. Marie was an actress who had performed regularly at the Fulton Theater, and it is rumored that her spirit still roams the corridors of the theater. A handful of witnesses have claimed to have seen Marie sitting in the audience as well as walking about backstage. The portrait of Marie in the dressing room area is sometimes covered in a black shroud before shows, and sometimes that shroud mysteriously falls. 2 final and quite regular paranormal occurrences involve the apparition of a man in a straw hat in the balcony of the theater and a little girl walking around in a white dress. All in all, the Fulton Theater is teeming with paranormal entities, and if you spend enough time in the theater, you are bound to see something that will make your hairs stand on end. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of haunted locations in Pennsylvania, but none are perhaps more haunted than the collective of the town of Gettysburg. A hotbed for the Civil War, there are thousands of restless souls in Gettysburg and the surrounding areas, particularly the battlefields. One story that gets an honorable mention is from Gettysburg College. Because there is no historically accurate story behind this ghost tale, it does not make our list of 3 scary stories, but is just spooky enough to be told anyway. In 1873, the old dorm, Pennsylvania Hall, was used as a military hospital during the Battle of Gettysburg. In present day, 2 college administrators were using the elevator in the hall. However, when the doors of the elevator opened, they were not taken to their desired floor, but instead, the basement. When the 2 administrators peered out beyond the threshold of the elevator, they found themselves in Civil War-era Gettysburg. They watched Civil War doctors sawing off the limbs of injured soldiers, but did not flee immediately, frozen with fear. It was not until a doctor approached them that the administrators fled to find a security guard. However, when they returned with security shortly thereafter, the basement was completely empty. Thank you for watching another episode of Sky High History. I sincerely hope you enjoyed your time and you walk away from this edition with just a slight chill down your spine and maybe the feeling that somebody's watching you. If you did like this video, scroll down, as long as you're not afraid, and click the like button. Also, while you're at it, go ahead and click the subscribe button. It helps me out immensely, and I can't tell you how much it means to me and my channel. We are on the quest to 1,000 subscribers, and as I've said before, nothing's going to stop us until we get there, not even death. Until next time, happy Halloween and stay spooky.